Question 1. In a context of a new production environment, is Alvarez needs to ensure the ADC connection pools automatically shrink during periods of low demand to release database resources. Which configuration change is the most effective way to achieve this without introducing connection timeouts for new requests? A. Lower the initial capacity and maximum capacity values. B. Enable connection harvesting with a suitable harvesting frequency. C. Set the connection reserve timeout to 0. D. Use pin-to-thread connections for high concurrency. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Enabling connection harvesting ensures that idle connections are reclaimed proactively without impacting active transactions, improving resource usage efficiency during low demand. Lowering capacity values can cause unnecessary pool expansion and connection churn. Setting the reserve timeout to 0 only affects wait behavior when the pool is exhausted, not idle cleanup. Pin-to-thread connections are for thread affinity scenarios, reduce flexibility and may increase idle connections. Question 2. Given the circumstances, Mr. Bennett has been tasked with creating a WebLogic cluster that supports zero downtime application redeployments and session failover. Which cluster configuration best satisfies these requirements? A. Single managed server with in-memory HTTP session replication enabled. B. Multicast-based cluster with DDC session persistence. C. Dynamic cluster with in-memory replication using replication groups. D. Unicast-based cluster with migratable targets disabled. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. A dynamic cluster with in-memory replication and replication groups provides automatic scaling and transparent failover, meeting zero downtime redeployment needs. A single managed server cannot offer redundant ADC SEM persistence adds durability but may slow failover. Unicast with migratable targets disabled loses automatic service migration, which compromises availability. Question 3. From multiple perspectives, why would a WebLogic administrator choose to configure an administration port in a multi-server domain? A. To segregate administrative traffic from application traffic for security and performance. B. To enable automatic load balancing for the administration console. C. To provide dedicated bandwidth for DC connection pools. D. To allow each managed server to start without node manager. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. Administration ports isolate administrative communications, often requiring SSL, reducing attack surface and ensuring admin actions aren't affected by application load. They don't provide load balancing for the console, which is accessed via single admin server. GDC pools don't benefit from dedicated network channel in this way. Starting without node manager is unrelated to administration port use. Question 4. Considering the evidence during application deployment testing Nakamura finds that a redeployed IF fails to update because it's still locked by an active session. Which deployment option should she choose to allow updates without disrupting users? A. Force redeployment with the undeployed switchable. B. Use production redeployment with versioned applications. C. Disable the session timeout temporarily. D. Set the deployment mode to test in production. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Production redeployment with versioning allows a new version to be deployed while the old one continues serving active sessions, ensuring no disruption. Forcing undeploy will drop all sessions abruptly. Disabling session timeout risks memory leaks and does not facilitate new version deployment. Using test mode in production is unsafe and unsupportive for live workloads. Question 5. By evaluating node manager logs, Mr. Rossi notices that managed servers fail to restart after a crash, but manual startup works fine. Which change is most likely to resolve the issue? A. Configure the crash recovery enable property to true. B. Change node manager type from Java to script. C. Increase the server restart interval threshold. D. Disable server auto restart in the domain configuration. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. Enabling crash recovery allows node manager to detect and restart failed servers automatically. Switching to script-based node manager doesn't inherently add crash recovery. Increasing restart interval affects frequency, not the ability to detect crashes. Disabling auto restart worsens the problem by removing recovery attempts. Question 6. While examining backup strategies, Patel wants to guarantee that all domain configuration and security files can be fully restored after a catastrophic loss without having to reinstall WebLogic binaries. What is the most reliable approach? A. Backup only the config, XML file, and LDAP folder. B. Use the pack utility to create a template of the domain. C. Backup the entire domain directory, including config, security, and applications. D. Export the domain configuration from the administration console. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. A full domain directory backup ensures all configuration, deployed apps, and security data are restored without relying on partial rebuilds. The config XML alone is insufficient. LDAP folder backups help but miss deployments. The pack utility produces a template but not an exact runtime state. Console exports cover configuration but omit binaries and deployed files. Question 7. Throughout the course of troubleshooting a startup problem, Mr. Grayson finds that a managed server is hanging due to a block DDC driver call. What's the most effective way to prevent this from delaying server startup? A. Configure the server start mode. 2. Never block on resource initialization. B. Use deployment order to ODC modules last. C. Enable the failfast parameter for DC connection pool. D. Increase the startup timeout in Node Manager. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Failfast ensures the DDC pools fail quickly if the database is unavailable, preventing startup hangs. Start mode changes don't control resource initialization blocking. Deployment order affects app deployment, not core services. Increasing startup timeout only prolongs the hang instead of avoiding it. Question 8. Under the assumption that a WebLogic administrator wants to enforce a uniform startup configuration across all managed servers in a cluster, what is the recommended method? A. Apply identical configuration changes to each server manually via the console. B. Use server templates and assign them to each server instance. C. Export and import the config XML file to each managed server. D. Store the configuration in the administration server cache. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Server templates allow consistent configuration settings across multiple managed servers without repetitive manual edits. Manual configuration is error-prone. Copying config XML manually risks inconsistencies and requires server restarts. Admin server caching is unrelated to configuration propagation. Question 9. Demonstrated by a recent outage, Mr. Ortega learns that a node manager process was killed, causing all associated managed servers to shut down unexpectedly. What adjustment prevents this behavior in the future? A. Configure managed servers to run in per domain node manager mode. B. Set the crash recovery enabled flag to false. C. Start managed servers in MI managed server independence mode. D. Disable the listen address in node manager configuration. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. MI mode allows managed servers to run independently without an active node manager, avoiding shutdown when node manager stops. Per domain node manager mode affects management scope, not independence. Disabling crash recovery removes automatic restarts, not helpful here. Removing listen address breaks remote management but doesn't solve forced shutdown. Question 10. The underlying principle of secure administration requires that administrators authenticate using enterprise credentials stored in an LDAP directory instead of WebLogic's default provider. What is the correct first step? A. Create a new authentication provider in the security realm linked to the external LDAP. B. Replace the embedded LDAP server with the external one. C. Delete the default authenticator to force LDAP usage. D. Enable cross-domain security in the domain configuration. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. Adding an external LDAP authentication provider allows seamless enterprise credential integration while retaining fallback to default. Replacing the embedded LDAP is unnecessary and risky. Deleting the default provider can lock out admin access if LDAP is unavailable. Cross-domain security is for trust between domains unrelated to LDAP integration. Question 11. Through the lens of deployment management, is Kava needs to roll back an IR to its previous stable version after A failed redeployment in a clustered production environment without downtime. What is the most effective approach? A. Alert A4 undeploy and then redeploy the old A. B. Activate production redeployment with version switching to the prior deployment. C. Clear the staging directory on all managed servers and copy the old A. D. Restart each managed server with the old deployment files. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Production redeployment with version switching allows reverting to a previous version while keeping active sessions intact. Force undeploy disrupts active users. Clearing the staging directory is risky and bypasses controlled deployment mechanisms. Restarting servers introduces unnecessary downtime. Question 12. In light of recent developments, Mr. Delaney's managed server fails during startup because the listen address is incorrectly configured, preventing client connections. Which action resolves this while minimizing downtime? A. Edit the config XML directly and restart the server. B. Change the listen address through the administration console and activate changes. C. Remove the listen address to revert to the default wildcard binding. D. Update the listen port in the node manager properties file. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Removing the listen address allows the server to bind to all network interfaces, restoring accessibility without requiring precise address updates. Direct config XML edits risk corruption and require downtime. Console changes won't take effect until restart. Adjusting node manager properties doesn't fix the server's binding issue. Question 13. The general consensus is that AutomDDC failover should be implemented for mission-critical applications connected to an Oracle RAC database. Which configuration achieves this in WebLogic? A. Use a generic data source with multiple DDELs. B. Configure a grid-linked data source with fan and ONS enabled. C. Create a multi-data source with load balancing enabled. D. Implement connection pooling manually in application code. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. GridLink with fan and ONS provides integrated real-time failover and load balancing with Oracle RAC, ensuring minimal downtime. Generic sources lack RAC integration. Multi-data sources handle failover but lack ONS-driven optimizations. Manual pooling in code is complex and bypasses WebLogic's robust mechanisms. Question 14. In response to performance issues, Isha observes that JMS messages are delayed due to paging in persistent stores. What is the most efficient first step to reduce latency? A. Increase the paging file size in the JMS store configuration. B. Switch to a file store with synchronous write policy. C. Migrate the JMS server to a machine with faster disk I/O. D. Enable message compression in JMS configuration. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Improving disk I/O directly reduces paging delays since persistent store access is disk-bound. Increasing paging size only postpones issues. Synchronous writes may increase durability but add latency. Message compression doesn't significantly help paging delays as disk speed remains the bottleneck. Question 15. To illustrate this point, Istakela needs to create a domain that can be replicated to multiple environments while preserving its complete configuration, deployments, and security settings. Which method is best suited? A. Use the pack utility to create a domain template. B. Export domain configuration from the administration console. C. Copy only the config and security directories to each machine. D. A script to recreate the domain in each environment. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. The pack utility generates a portable template of the domain, including configurations and applications ideal for replication. Console exports don't cover binaries. Copying partial directories omits deployed applications and might break dependency layer creation requires extensive scripting and manual verification. Question 16. Taking into account security best practices, Brian wants to ensure that administrative changes require reauthentication even if the user has an active session. Which feature enables this? A. Enabling identity assertion in the security realm. B. Configuring the administration console to use secure cookies. C. Enforcing console reauthentication for protected tasks. D. Setting session timeout to the minimum allowable value. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Console reauthentication for protected tasks forces administrators to re-enter credentials for sensitive actions even during an active session. Identity assertion is for single sign-on, not reauthentication. Secure cookies protect session data but don't trigger new logins. Session timeout controls idle time, not per task authentication. Question 17. At the heart of this issue is do you notices that one managed server in a cluster is handling disproportionately more requests than others despite identical configurations. What's the most likely cause? A. Incorrect cluster multicast address. B. Session stickiness for HEP load balancer configuration. C. Node manager running on an outdated JDK DC connection pool maximum capacity mismatch. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Session stickiness keeps user sessions tied to the same server, which can cause imbalances if sessions are long-lived. Run multicast addresses prevent communication entirely, not cause imbalance. JDK version mismatches in Node Manager don't affect load balancing. JDC capacity affects database load and HEP request distribution. Question 18. When presented with a requirement to reduce downtime for applying WebLogic patches, is Santos needs a solution that avoids shutting down the entire domain. What's the best approach? A. Apply patches sequentially to each managed server in rolling fashion. B. Use the reconfiguration wizard to apply patches. C. Disable session replication temporarily during patching. D. Restart the administration server in MR mode. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. Rolling patching allows servers to be updated one at a time while others continue serving requests, minimizing downtime. The reconfiguration wizard is for major version upgrades, not small patches. Disabling replication risks data loss. MI mode applies to managed servers starting without admin contact, not patching. Question 19. With the advent of dynamic clusters, Owens wants to scale a cluster automatically based on workload without manually creating each managed server. Which configuration enables this? A. Use server templates and configure dynamic server creation limits. B. Add managed servers one by one using the administration console. C. Use multicast communication for automatic scaling. D. Enable Node Manager crash recovery. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. Server templates with dynamic server creation enable WebLogic to instantiate new managed servers automatically up to a configured limit. Manual additions are time-consuming. Multicast aids communication, not scaling. Crash recovery. Restarts fail servers but doesn't create new ones. Question 20. Examining the consequences of a misconfigured ADC, a data source Vargas finds that transactions involving multiple resources often fail with heuristic exceptions. What is the most probable root cause? A. The ZAR transaction timeout is too short for the workload. B. The database listener is not configured for TCP keep-live. C. The connection pool initial capacity is too low. D. The WebLogic logging level is set to debug. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. An ZAR timeout that's too short will cause transaction managers to prematurely roll back distributed transactions, leading to heuristic exceptions. TCP keep-live affects idle connection survival, not transaction outcome. Initial pool capacity impacts performance but not transaction coordination. Debug logging has no effect on ZAR behavior. Question 21. Historically speaking, Lawson wants to improve the resiliency of his WebLogic cluster against network interruptions between managed servers. Which approach best addresses transient connection failures during cluster communication? A. Enable replication channel failover with multiple listen addresses. B. Configure persistent stores on high availability storage. C. HEP session persistence to a database. D. Increase JVM heap size for each managed server. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. Multiple listen addresses for replication channels allow managed servers to continue communicating even if one network path fails. Persistent stores ensure data durability but not communication resiliency. Database session persistence helps failover but doesn't directly solve network link issues. Heap size changes address memory issues, not networking. Question 22. Contrary to popular belief, increasing the JVM heap size does not always improve server performance. Under what condition could it actually degrade WebLogic performance? A. When garbage collection intervals become too frequent. B. When excessive heap size increases GC pause durations. C. When the server uses JDC data sources extensively. D. When the domain uses unicast clustering. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Excessive heap size leads to longer garbage collection pauses, impacting response times. Too frequent GC occurs with too little heap. Not Tomama JDC usage is unrelated to heap size issues unless memory leaks occur. Clustering mode, unicast multicast, is unrelated to garbage collection. Question 23. The most significant aspect of ensuring secure remote administration is protecting node manager communication. What configuration achieves this? A. Use SSL and configure node manager to require username password authentication. B. Enable MI mode for all managed servers. C. Place node manager behind a reverse proxy. D. Disable remote startup and only use local scripts. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. SSL encryption and authentication secure node manager communication against interception and unauthorized access. MI mode improves independence, not security. A reverse proxy can obscure endpoints but does not secure the communication itself. Disabling remote startup removes convenience without addressing security for other enumerations. Question 24. During the process of diagnosing startup failures, Chen finds that her managed server repeatedly restarts due to a missing deployment dependency. What is the most appropriate fix to prevent this? The increase node manager restart interval. B. Set the deployments auto deploy option to false. C. Correct the dependency and redeploy the application. D. Change the server startup mode to admin mode permanently. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Fixing the actual missing dependency ensures the server can start successfully without repeated crashes. Changing restart intervals only delays restarts. Disabling auto-deploy doesn't fix the cause if the app is required. Running in admin mode avoids starting the app but is not a long-term solution. Question 25. Given the circumstances, Anil wants to quickly replicate an entire WebLogic domain to new machine, including all deployments and security settings. Which tool is best for this? They use the pack and pack utilities. B. Copy the config, XML file, and LDAP directory. C. Export from the administration console. D. Ublay align a script to rebuild the domain. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. The pack and pack utilities allow efficient domain replication across machines while preserving all configurations and security data. Copying config, XML, and LDAP misses deployments. Console export is incomplete for full replication. Rebuild is slow and prone to human error. Question 26. The core principles of high availability dictate that if a machine fails, its services should migrate to another machine automatically. Which configuration enables this in WebLogic? A. Configure the cluster to use dynamic servers. B. Set up migratable targets for critical services. C. Enable MI mode on all servers. D. JDC multi-data sources. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Migratable targets allow services like JMS servers or singleton services to fail over automatically to another machine in case of hardware failure. Dynamic servers allow scaling but not service failover. MI mode ensures server independence but not service migration. Multi-data sources handle DB failover, not WebLogic service failover. Question 27. From a practical standpoint, Vegan notices that the administration console is sluggish during peak load even though application performance is unaffected. What's the best optimization step? A. Increase administration server heap size. B. Limit the number of concurrent console sessions. C. Enable console throttling and disable unnecessary monitoring tabs. D. Restart the administration server during off-peak hours. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Console throttling and disabling unnecessary live monitoring reduce load on the admin server's JVM, improving responsiveness. Increasing heat may help slightly but won't solve excessive monitoring load. Limiting sessions is blunt approach. Restarting off-peak is temporary fix, not solution. Question 28. By comparing WebLogic's clustering modes, which statement best explains why unicast clustering is often preferred over multicast in modern deployments? A. Unicast offers better performance in high-latency WAN environments. B. Multicast is incompatible with ATES connections. C. Unicast is required for dynamic clusters to function. D. Multicast consumes significantly less network bandwidth. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. Unicast avoids multicast network configuration issues and is more reliable over WAN links with higher latency. Multicast ATA, they are separate layers. Dynamic clusters can work with either mode. Multicast generally uses less bandwidth but suffers from network restrictions in many data centers. Question 29. When analyzing DC performance metrics, System Morales finds that connection pools are frequently exhausted even though the database is underutilized. What's the most likely cause? A. Application code is not closing GDC connections properly. B. Database listener is rejecting connections. C. Connection leak profiling is disabled. D. The pool initial capacity is greater than the maximum capacity. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. Failing to cause GDC connections in application code keeps them checked out, exhausting the pool despite database capacity. Listener issues would cause immediate connection errors. Leak profiling helps diagnose but not cause the problem. Having initial maximum is a configuration error but not typical in production. Question 30. To determine whether a WebLogic upgrade is backward compatible with existing domain configurations, which method should an administrator use before applying the upgrade in production? A. Use the reconfiguration wizard on a test copy of the domain. B. Apply the upgrade directly to the production domain during off hours. C. Review Oracle's release notes and assume compatibility. D. Export the domain config, XML, and compare manually. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. Running the reconfiguration wizard in a test environment validates upgrade compatibility, identifying schema or setting changes before production rollout. Direct upgrade is risky. Release notes are important but not a substitute for testing. Manual config comparison is incomplete and error-prone.